Emotional processing also changes in the amygdala, and this is another area of the brain that's important. So the adolescent amygdala responds to threat cues more than adults, but not to the safety cue. The stronger correlation for adults than for adolescents between activity in another region of the brain in response to the safety cue. So they respond more to a threat cue, but not to the safety cue. So then maybe they're more sort of likely to notice a threat, but they're not most likely to notice safety. Again, that could impact someone's decision making. Let's have a look at how. So as the brain develops, certain areas in adolescence or in a teenage brain, they all mature at different rates. The parts of the brain responsible for things like planning and paying attention, which are found in the prefrontal cortex, are among the last to fully develop. And again, this is all to do with decision making in the prefrontal cortex. Meanwhile, the amygdala, which is what we looked at on our last slide, which deals with emotions, starts maturing earlier on during late childhood and stabilizes during the teenage years. This creates a kind of mismatch because the prefrontal cortex is still catching up while the amygdala is already settled. We won't go into all of the details because I don't want to overcomplicate things, but let's have a look at why this might mean that some teenagers make risky decisions more so than adults. And let's do this by having a look at a case study. So this case study I will share after the lesson as well, because it is really, really, really important. And it is a great one that I think you can draw on in your essay question about an example of an adolescent who is making decisions about their own bodies and the impact this had. So this is about Elsa, and I've shared the link to it here. She's a 16-year-old adolescent who was diagnosed with diabetes at the age of 4. And essentially, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's very long, but throughout her childhood, she was able to make decisions and monitor her condition very well. So that included, giving herself injections of insulin, managing her condition very responsibly, going to doctor's appointments, etc. However, when Elsa turned 12 and she went to secondary school, so sort of when she became an adolescent or a teenager, things changed. She started to exert less self-control. She did not measure her glucose levels, and she didn't inject insulin for meals at school. So injecting insulin is essentially how you have to deal with diabetes type 1. And if you do not inject insulin, this can be very risky and dangerous for an individual. And it can result in, death or serious illness. Her school friends were unaware of her diabetes because Elsa did not inform them. She tried to deny her diabetes at school and often even took out the insulin pump, for example, during physical exercise at school. When at the paediatrician's office, so that's the doctor's office, she was always friendly, she showed remorse and promised improvement. At age 14, however, she had to be admitted to the intensive care unit because of severe dysregulation of her diabetes and an acute life-threatening situation. At age 16, the same thing happened after drinking large amounts of alcohol. So you can see from this case study that something happened during adolescence that meant that Elsa had this chronic condition, and during childhood, she was okay at managing it herself, making decisions about the condition and how to manage it and treat it. Whereas during adolescence, her ability to make good decisions and continue to manage and treat her condition decreased, and she made much more irresponsible and risky behaviours, which actually ended up with her ending up in an intensive care unit in hospital.